Hello and welcome to Lunchtime Politics. First, the highlights. Loyalists of PDP chairman Iyorchia Ayu trade words with Governor Samuel Ortom in Benue, warns Ortom's activities may jeopardize party chances. Socio-Economic Rights and Accountability Project, SERAP, seeks International Criminal Court ICC probe of election-related violence in Nigeria, says if not addressed, may lead to post-election violence. Anambra Governor Professor Chukwuma Soludo encourages politics of development in road and security infrastructure. Hello and a warm welcome to the program. I'm Millicent Walker in Lagos. With 11 days to the general elections, political parties race to tell the people why they should be voted into office. But as these statewide rallies continue, is there enough time to resolve the issues in the People's Democratic Party? Well, this is because loyalists of the national chairman, Iyorchia Ayu, say Governor Samuel Ortom is likely to jeopardize his senatorial election by working against the presidential candidate of the party. As they say, both elections are tied to each other, saying that he is yet to commit to working for Mr. Atiku Abubakar. The former chairman of the Benue State Internal Revenue Service, who served under Governor Samuel Ortom, Mr. Tazungwe Atsa, disclosed this while reacting to the ongoing PDP campaigns in Benue State.
Loyalists of the People's Democratic Party in Benue State in the past weeks have been moving from one local government to another, campaigning for its presidential candidate ahead of the February 25th elections. This deliberate projection of the presidential candidate of the party in some of the areas visited witnessed Mr. Atiku Abubakar and the national chairman's loyalists hold sway.
You already know, His Excellency the Governor of Benue State has already declared that in 2023 we are going to vote in this election according to the elections. So when it gets to presidential elections, His Excellency, who is the leader of the party, will direct us on where to go.
The party is asking voters in Akpa local government area to vote for its governorship candidate, Mr. Titus Uba, to sustain the safety programs of the Ortom administration.
I want to assure you that Titus Uba, with these other candidates, if voted in, will continue to good work to ensure the protection of lives and property and protection of our land, so that we can go to farm. That is what God has given to us. So that there will be economic boost, so that there will be agriculture and food security and job creation when we go into processing.
Unless you don't want to work for PDP.
Reacting to these, a loyalist of Mr. Atiku Abubakar and Mr. Iyorchia Ayu consider this a weak approach to resolving the issues in the PDP, as it has the potential of affecting the governor's senatorial ambition and other candidates.
The governor has not assured him that he was going to work for Atiku Abubakar. But within the time remaining, he is still hopeful as a father of the party that all his children will come together at long last to work, because they have nothing to gain outside this party. If you go and work for another party, I don't think you have any reason to gain. If you are genuinely concerned and that you are aggrieved with a particular political party and you want to go and work for another party, the best option is for you to leave this party and go to that other party. You cannot sit in another house and put your legs in a different house.
With just 2 weeks to the national elections, the party leadership is continuing its call on Governor Ortom and others to rejoin the party's campaign for an all-inclusive victory.
The chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, is currently in a meeting with leaders of political parties ahead of the forthcoming general elections. The meeting is happening at the INEC conference room, exactly 12 days to the presidential and National Assembly elections. The meeting is aimed at bringing the political parties up to speed with all the preparations for the elections and to remind the parties about their obligations. In attendance are some party chairmen, other members of the National Working Committee, of the 18 political parties participating in the elections. The INEC chairman urges political parties to ensure that only accredited party agents are allowed to the polling areas. He also appeals to the parties to call their candidates and supporters to order owing to violent attacks which have been recorded in some of the campaigns. In Imo State, a civil society group in Imo under the aegis Save Imo Group, they've urged Nigerians and Imolites to put aside political parties and vote for personality across party lines in the forthcoming election. Speaking at a press conference in the state capital, renowned activist and convener of the group says in previous elections, voting people because of party they belong to has failed Nigerians. But now he says it's time to vote for personality, irrespective of party he or she belongs to.
Imo is calling on Imo and Nigerians to hold credible candidates with integrity, candidates who are competent, candidates with capacity, candidates who are selfless. That is the only way we can have good governance and selfless leadership in Nigeria. For the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, we endorse Peter Obi of Labour Party. For Luzon, otherwise Imo West Central District, we endorse Senator Citizens or OFR of the APC.
We are staying with issues related to the forthcoming general elections, and the Socioeconomic Rights and Accountability Project, SERAP, has asked the International Criminal Court, ICC, to properly seek authorization from the ICC to commence an investigation into the situation in Nigeria in relation to the growing cases of pre-election violence. In a statement yesterday, SERAP's Deputy Director warned that if cases of pre-election violence are not addressed, it may escalate and lead to post-election violence in the country. And SERAP's Deputy Director, Kolawole Oluwadare, indeed joins me now here in Lagos. Welcome to the program. Okay, this isn't the first time we're seeing election-related violence. This has been a feature of our elections in the past. So why now? Why the ICC?
Why now? Because it's very important for what we are seeing and the events that have led up to these very moments. And then why the ICC? Because primarily, so there is the moral, or call it the factual basis, and then there is the legal basis. I'll start with the legal basis. The legal basis, because the Rome Statute, which is the law that sets up the International Criminal Court, says that one of the most important things that activates the jurisdiction of the court is the unwillingness of a state party, and in this case, Nigeria is a state party, to either cannot to or not willing to do so to prosecute and investigate those crimes. And in this instance, the scale and the patterns of this violence qualifies as crimes against humanity, which is why we've approached the International Criminal Court. And you would agree with me, and that is the moral or factual basis, that the pattern and the scale of this violence leading up to this very moment is growing, and it's going day by day. And elections is just more less than 12 or 13 days away. And so if the violence keeps growing, and there is no action on the part of government to either investigate or prosecute the perpetrators of these crimes, what do you expect as we approach the elections? That is why we've taken the steps to the ICC.
So you're saying that the institutions that we have here in Nigeria are not sufficient enough to handle what we're seeing?
It is less of whether they are sufficient, it is whether they are taking steps, which is what is called the complementarity principle in international law. That is, a state party in Nigeria in this instance does not, cannot, and is unwilling to take steps to investigate and prosecute what we've seen as crimes against humanity. So we do have those institutions of state. We have the police, we have many of them, including INEC, who, by virtue of the Electoral Act 2022, has powers to prosecute those who perpetrate electoral violence. But nothing has been done, and it keeps growing. And that is why it's very important at this point that the ICC intervenes. And it's very important, militant, to understand that. In this instance, part of what the ICC can do is also to monitor the events now, pre-election. And we have precedent for that. We've seen that done in Cote d'Ivoire. We've seen that done in Kenya in 2010. So really, it's not out of place.
So what are your expectations? ICC supposed to send a response? Will they ask for the federal government to get involved as monitors or observers for the elections? What happens next?
The way it works with the International Criminal Court, with the Rome Statute and the various regulations, is that the prosecutor in this instance will have to seek authorization of the pre-trial chambers of the International Court to open an investigation. And like we've seen the ICC do in Kenya, they will send a legal team, which is what we requested that it should do, come to Nigeria to monitor the elections, now pre-elections, during the elections and post-elections. So you can call it preventive, and you can call it a prosecutor. So if they monitor the events as we talk now, that will prevent growing attacks. That is our hope. And even if it doesn't stop, it means the ICC will have the ability, they will be able to gather the evidence to prosecute those who have done this criminal acts. But
the federal government has the liberty to reject this invitation and not issue an invitation.
Nigeria is a state party to the Rome Statute, so we subscribe to International Criminal Court.
And we've domesticated that.
Yes, we signed on that. No, it's not domesticated, we ratified it in 2001. So it means we are bound by the jurisdiction and even the judgments of the International Criminal Court. So in this instance, we cannot refuse. I think it's more of the prosecutor agreeing with what we've said and actually activating that process.
So when we look at the elections, why do you think we continue to witness this, pre, during, and post?
I think we can talk about immediate causes and then remote causes and then what we've seen as immediate. And I think we cannot look at this election as a key part of democratic practice without looking at our history. So this is a pattern, really. We've seen it in 2011, we've seen it in 2015, we've seen it in 2019. And so I would say there are incidences of, call it the inefficiency of these public institutions that should be able to prevent these attacks or to prosecute those who have done them. So for instance, you look at the Electoral 2022, Section 145 gives INEC the power to prosecute offenses under the Electoral Act. And we've seen a lot of offenses already, even leading up during the campaigns, like the one that happened in Lagos over the weekend. So the question is, what has INEC done? Nothing. What has the police done? Nothing. And so these patterns continue to grow because of impunity. That much needed state institutions that should prevent or prosecute those who have done so to serve as a deterrent, they are just not working. Not because they are unable to do so, but because there is a lack of political will to do so. Government cannot, over time, build an atmosphere of impunity, disobeying judgments of court, doing what they like, not obeying the rule of law, and expect overnight, because elections are around the corner, for all those public institutions to work. I'm sorry, it doesn't just work that way.
INEC today is talking to political parties, calling on their candidates, supporters, to stop the violent attacks being recorded in some of their campaigns. Do you see, in the few days that we have to the elections, anything major threatening the elections holding?
I really don't think there's anything can stop the election. So what INEC is doing is fine. But again, it goes beyond just meeting them, like I've highlighted. These various institutions, including INEC, the police and other critical stakeholders, are they empowered to function? Can they function? That is most important. Talking to the political parties is more we call it the kinetic approach. It's more persuasive and moral. But the institutions should be able to work on themselves.
The peace accord they signed.
Yes, they should be able to work without that moral appeal to them, which is fine. But I'm afraid that is not enough. But I see the elections holding as planned.
Sarab's Deputy Director, Kolawole Oluwadare, thank you so much for joining us on the program.
Thank you very much.
Well, still to come, it's more campaigns ahead of the general elections. That's in a moment. Stay with us. Welcome back. And ahead of the forthcoming general elections, the governorship candidate of the All Progressives Congress in Kaduna State, Senator Obasani, has promised to sustain the industrial revolution initiated by the outgoing administration of Governor Nasir El-Rufai by attracting more industries and investments in the state. He also disclosed that the APC-led government has attracted over $1 billion worth investments, created over 70,000 jobs in Chukun local government area alone in the past 7.5 years. He made the promise during a campaign rally in Chukun and Kaduna local government areas.
I'm really impressed with the reception we got in Kaduna local government in particular, and as well as Chukun. These are some of the 2 local governments that we've been finding it very difficult. But this time around, I'm extremely happy because the youths, as well as the women here, and even the traditional leaders, have shown their appreciation for the support given to them by our amiable governor. They have also been extremely happy with the level of development they have seen in the last few years. In the past, Chukun have not been like this. Nobody have really done anything for Chukun local government. But as we are speaking, Chukun have been able to benefit from investment worth over $1 billion. Our governor have been able to attract investment. As we are speaking, Ortom have invested almost $300 million here in Chukun local government. We also have OCP fertilizer from Morocco who have invested almost $200 million. And Dangote also have invested almost $100 million. So these are investments worth almost $1 billion here in Chukun that have generated a lot of employment. Over 5,000 employment locally. The people of Chukun Logome have benefited from it, but as a whole, we have direct and indirect benefits that have generated over 75,000 employment here in Chukun local government, Kajura, and some several local governments because of this investment I've just mentioned.
In the southeast, the Anambra State Governor, Professor Chukwuma Soludo, says his interest is in politics of development, which will ensure all-round development of the state, devoid of any form of sentiment. The governor made the comments when he took delivery of several security gadgets donated by the senator representing Anambra South Senatorial Zone, Senator Ifeanyi Ubah, to step up security in Anambra South. The intention of the federal government is to conduct the 2023 general election along with the national population census all within a space of a few months. Is this too ambitious? Joining us is Bimbola Hundain, Federal Commissioner of Population Commission, Lagos State. She joins me now here in Lagos. Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Speak to us. How realistic is the census alongside the general elections?
Well, I must first of all let you know that the census alongside the elections, if in a normal climate, what I mean by that is, you know, the election comes up every 4 years. Normally, the global norm is that censuses should be taken every 10 years. So there is no how one day 2 of them will come up same year. So there's nothing abnormal about it. Don't also forget that while census is census is not wild, don't let me use the word, census is a very peaceful project. It's a very peaceful thing to do. It involves everybody, it's an all-inclusive project and all that. Election is for certain age, 18 and above. And both of them have the same purpose, ultimately, for better governance, to give the people better life, you know what I mean. The difference between them is that because the census is the mother of all data, it gives data for everything. It even gives data to the elections. So if they come together, they're not happening on the same day, remember. It's just that they're happening probably the same month. There's really nothing about it because they serve the same purpose. The essence of election is to elect people democratically so that we can have equity and an equitable and justiciable society, isn't it? It's the same purpose of the census, is to ensure that resources are adequately and accurately and properly allocated to the right places based on demographic data, based on the empirical evidence that we garner from the data.
But right now we're seeing the elections, you know, developing to a fever pitch. There are issues such as security issues. For the census, are there any challenges that, as you prepare for the census?
Well, like every other national project, there are challenges, and we also have challenges for the census. But we don't have so much of violence. Nobody gets angry with you because you're a census person, you know. What we have is if there are challenges in areas before then, like areas where you have insurgency problems, we still have that. We still have to be able to cope with that. And that's how we've reached out to the defense, and they've assured us that we're going to make sure that the enumerators are well protected during the census. The challenge we also have is to make people understand the importance of the census. almost every Nigerian understands the importance of the elections, because when it comes more regularly and then it touches more on our leaders, people are more interested, and that. The census touches everybody, unfortunately, because it's a silent project, but it's the mother of every other development. It's what makes a country to develop. So the challenges we have is people understanding and appreciating, whether at the leadership level or at the people's level, you know, appreciating the importance of census and giving it all that it takes.
For some reason, you know, there's been the notion that the census scheme is being contrived to sort of achieve a predetermined sectional interest. How much has the Commission been able to allay those fears?
I must be honest with you, that's quite true, because people believe that. That's why some people will tell you that census is political. But we keep telling people, census is purely an economic activity. It is not a political activity. But the result of census affects every fiber of the human being, because census tells us where to put infrastructures. It tells you what to do about education, how many schools to build, what kind of schools. It tells you where to put hospitals and what kind of hospitals you need. It tells you the kind of infrastructure and where they are needed. States that need water transportation, air transportation, what to do with your borders. Census touches every fiber of the human life. So that's why people sometimes feel it is political. And unfortunately, in Nigeria, a lot of people still believe that way, even our leaders. But it is purely an economic activity. It is for development. It is to make people's lives better.
In terms of what we've known or what we've used, which are figures from other institutions like the World Bank on our population, what are your thoughts on, you know, those kind of figures from these institutions?
I want to thank those institutions. At least we have something to work with. But the truth is they are never accurate. They are extrapolations. They are, you know what I mean by that? We're just saying, okay, if this is this, then this could be that. You know what I mean? They're not exact and they're not accurate. It is only when a country takes census that it can have accurate figure. And it is only when you have accurate figure that you can have proper evidence-based governance, which brings better governance, brings good living to the people. So without the census, no nation can have accurate demographic data. And without accurate demographic data, no nation can properly manage the affairs of its people.
What are the plans to, you know, safeguard members of your team to go into those hinterlands, hard-to-reach areas and get?
I mentioned it earlier on. I told you that we've been discussing with the Ministry of Defense. We've been talking to last week we launched the Security Committee, and it was launched by I think the Minister of Defense or somebody. I can't recall because I wasn't there in Abuja. And we're working with all the security agencies to ensure that they give our enumerators, our functionaries, adequate security, adequate cover during the period. And they've assured us it will be fine.
Well, I appreciate your time. Thank you so much for talking to us. Bimbola Hunde is the Federal Commissioner, Population Commission in Lagos. Thanks again.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
And the incoming ADC government of Ogun State will partner with the community development associations in order to engender development of the various communities there. The candidate of the party in the March 2023 governorship election, Mr. Lubi Otegbeye, gave this assurance while addressing the rally in Odeda, the headquarters of Odeda local government area of the state.
We are in Odeda Ward, Odeda local government. This is Ward 1, the foremost ward. These are wonderful people. The women are wonderful. The youths are wonderful. Now let me hear the youth say Pozameta. Now all these people, they have united together and they have declared that they are casting their votes for ADC in this election. All election they will cast it for ADC. You see, they have resolved to cast their vote for ADC, and we are assuring them when we get to government, we will not forget them. We will take care of all the women, all the loan at cutthroat rates that they have been forced to take, we are going to do something about it. We are also going to take care of all our youth. All our ballots will be respected. Cha cha cha! Cha cha cha! All the CBAs.
We have more political stories now. The Department of State Services has invited a spokesperson of the All Progressives Congress Presidential Campaign Council, Femi Fani-Kayode, over allegations of a coup plot ahead of the general elections. Mr. Fani-Kayode confirmed the invitation in a statement, which partly reads, "When it touches and concerns matters of national security, which I take very seriously, and when it involves agencies like the DSS, who are professionals and thorough in their methods and approach, I have nothing to hide, and consequently, I will present myself before the DSS this morning, as I have been asked to do." Elsewhere, the presidential candidate of the All Progressives Congress, Bola Tinubu, has backed the cashless and Naira redesign policies introduced by the Central Bank of Nigeria. According to Mr. Tinubu, he is not against the decision of the CBN to redesign the Naira and the drive towards a cashless economy, but he's only against the disruptive implementation of the policy, which he says has led to a serious cash crunch in the country. And finally, the Nigerian Governors Forum have warned that the Naira crisis occasioned by the Central Bank of Nigeria policy might cause another economic recession in the country. It comes as Attorney Generals of Ekiti, Bayelsa, Sokoto, River State join the legal battle against the federal government over the currency redesign of the central bank. The states are opposing the February 10 deadline for the currency swap policy on grounds that it is inflicting suffering on their citizens. Well, hope you've enjoyed the political stories served to you at lunchtime. Don't forget, you can join the conversation on our social media platforms. I'm Millicent Walker. Thank you for watching.